In this demo, we're going to show how the Boardwalk collaboration platform can be used to support a tax process within a large corporation. In this particular example, what we're looking at is a book-to-tax rec where we'd like to be able to collect information from the multiple entities about the reconciliation for book-to-tax recs across all the different M1 work papers. As you can see here, there's bad debt expense, there's non-deductible contributions, there's multiple work papers that are typically put inside of a workbook like this as tabs spread across the bottom. And the workbook is sent out to all the different users. They have to work on it either in serial or if they do check in, check out. And it doesn't really scale well for being able to support collecting information, nor does it give the company any ability to really understand what's changed as they go through the process. The Boardwalk collaboration platform enables sharing data at a cell level within any Excel workbook. And basically, the users are able to take workbooks exactly as they have them today, maybe even add information like a comments column in order to support some level of collaboration between the users. And all they have to do is they install a plugin inside of Excel. So Boardwalk Tech is a Microsoft certified partner, and we provide a plugin that manages the communication between individuals working inside their workbooks inside of Excel on the desktop and the back-end database server. And what we've taken is a couple examples here where we want to be able to look at the bad debt extent and we want to be able to look at the information for the non-deductible contributions. And if we switch over and take a look at this workbook, you can see that this is going to that page and it's saying go grab this information from all these different entities. And in this case, we've only taken a couple, but there were multiple entities that they wanted to be able to set up so that they could all work with this data. And what the users do is they come in and they say, okay, go get the information from the back-end system. So in this case, they're pulling data out of Hyperion. And as that data comes in, it has the most recent information dumped into the workbook for the user to be able to work on it. But they found it was very difficult to have everybody kind of working on this information at the same time. Well, with BCP, you're able to leverage any one of the columns that are inside the workbook as an access criteria filter, which means that you can say, in this particular case, we have MUS and we have BSMG as two different divisions. You can say, well, I'm going to have multiple users working on this workbook. And when the BSMG person is interacting with this data, I want them only to see the data that shows up in the GTN column where BSMG shows up as a value in the cell. So what this means is that you can have multiple users working concurrently, collecting and reconciling information, but have a central version of the data that represents all the information that's needed to be pushed back into tax environments. So now if I switch over from the manager to the BSMG person, they too would see the associated workbooks, but it's only showing the data values that they're responsible for. So if I look over here at the P02 or the bad debt work paper, the only rows that are in here are the rows that they're responsible for. And BCP manages the positionality of all the data, so you don't have to worry about people adding rows and then formulas are broken and all the issues about linking between different workbooks. Instead, what they do is they simply come into the workbook, and the first thing the user does is after opening up the same workbook, is they say, well, I want to see if anything's changed in the server. And so if I log in now and I say check the database, what it's looking at is the multiple ranges that are all active inside this workbook and whether anything's been changed centrally that's not reflected in the workbook. And it's telling me that there are no missing updates in the database. So I can go ahead and make my changes as a user and say, for example, that I want to change this from 1300 to 1400. And maybe I want to put a comment over here saying change, for example. And maybe I'd like to be able to add something new to this. So if I come in and say, let's add a new row, and I need to unlock this. And you can control whether people are able to do this or not. But in this case, I'm going to say, let's insert a new row. And I'm just going to go ahead and grab this data, and I'll copy and paste it down here. And I'll say this is demo. And then maybe I'll make this be 800, for example. And as you can see, as I'm making these changes, of course, all the math and everything's working inside of Excel exactly as it does today. But as a user, when I'm finished with this and I want to be able to share this with other users, instead of having to check this back into a central file area or email my changes to somebody, I simply come in and I use the plugin to say, well, I want to submit my changes to the database. And I say, these are my updates. We even have the ability to push out what's called a critical update, which means everybody who's working in their work papers would have to refresh before they could submit. But basically, I've made these changes, and now I push this back to the server. And as soon as you do that, only the changes that were done are pushed to the server. So it's not the entire work paper, and those changes are available for all other users. So if I now switch back over to the manager, and I log out, and I go back again and I say, you know what, I want to check the status of this, but now instead of BSMG, I'm the manager, and the manager is looking at this same range of data. Well, the server now says there's been a change to this range of data that's not reflected inside this local workbook. So if I say, okay, well, go grab that change and bring it in and show me what the changes are, then I can see right away that the update was done here, where the data value was changed from 1300 to 1400. There's the new row that was added. And then also, this is information that's not being pushed back and forth to a tax system, but it's just local information for collaboration. You can see that the update to the change comment was here. And of course, just like Excel, you could append to this instead of replacing the entire thing. And what you're able to do, in addition to always have the most recent data, is you're able to go back in time. So let's say, for example, I wanted to look at this particular cell and say, show me how this has changed over the past month. Well, basically, with a few clicks of the mouse, I can say who's made changes to this and what data values have they changed and when. So with BCP, you're not only able to always know what the most recent information is, but you're able to take any cell and say, how has it been changed over time, whether it's by a user or by an external system, and what have the previous data values been. And the reason we're able to do that with BCP is that for each range of data, what's happening is we're tracking all the changes to that range of data. So if I now say, look at this entire P02 workbook, I can look at it and say, well, what's been done? Have there been rows added, rows deleted, columns added, formulas changed? And as every user interacts with the system or another system interacts with the data, it'll tell you what the changes were. So you have a complete audit trail, not only at a cell level, but the entire workbook level, such that you can come in and say, well, you know, I want to see what this person changed back on the 31st. So now show me the data as of that time. And again, just using another tab that you can delete inside the workbook, you're able to go and look at exactly what that person did. You can have all the formulas active at that point, so if there's a particular calculation that's been done based on these updates, you're able to see this. So with BCP, what we're now able to do is to enable a multi-user collaborative environment for any data that a company is trying to work with within their tax environment, but still give the company the ability to always understand what is the most recent information across all the users, because the data is being centrally managed in the BCP database, which can be connected to other applications to support tax operations throughout the entire company.